Loving that new intro, like both intros. We have elite intros here. Welcome back. This is Beyond the Box Score. I'm Dan Schneier. That's Jacob Gibbs. Hopefully, you've been tuning in with us all off season, but now it's the regular season, and it's all business in the regular season. What does that mean? We're getting right back into this thing, and we're going to throw this. Do we want to talk Monday Night Football players or RB1 discussion first? What are we doing first, Jacob?
Yeah, let's just get right into running back.
All right, let's just hit running back.
We're gonna
talked Monday night already.
Yeah, we're gonna hit on. We talked Monday night with Adam. Definitely listen to that if you aren't familiar with the classic Beyond the Box Score show that started it all. If you're new around here, we recap every Monday with Adam. But today, getting straight to business, I'm gonna share my screen and show you guys some usage-based stuff, and we're gonna talk about the running back position. And so I think Dan, just anything that stands out to you or me, we can just talk about.
Yeah.
We'll spend a little bit of time with each position. And then at the end of the show, we're going to do some listener questions if we can find those. And we're going to do some waiver wire action for you guys. Help you make some decisions there on who to drop, who to keep, and who to keep an eye out for. And then new show Wednesday, I'm going to be doing a usage rundown of every position. So today we'll get into some of the highlights. We'll talk about what we saw on film. But if you really want the nitty gritty, all the route data, all the who's the backup running back, who's playing situational stuff, that'll all be on the Wednesday show. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Okay, running back.
Just a couple more to plug. The Thursday show is a matchup show, and that's going to be everybody who asks, what do I do? What do I do in this matchup? What are the good matchups? The bad matchups? My start sits. Jacob's going to hit all of those. And really wanted to take a moment at least to thank all of you listeners who joined us this offseason and helped us get this show off the ground. Really positive momentum on all angles, just about any way you can look at it. And part of that was all you, because the people who spent the time to hit the like button, again, if you're watching right now, hover your hand over that mouse and just click like for us. Leave a comment, juice up those comments, and juice us up the algorithm. And then most importantly, and we'll get to it at the end, if you leave us a rating and review on iTunes or Spotify, that just helps so many more eyeballs get on the show. And that's the key. Get it in front of I've always said to Jacob, as long as we can get in front of people, I think they'll stick with us if they give us a chance. We need them to give us a chance. And by doing that, you'll help us give them a chance. But also leave a question in your rating and review. We'll answer it. Today, we're doing listener questions. We're going to do that throughout the year. So I think that's a big part of the show. I've always felt like any good podcast involves the listeners and makes the listeners feel like they're part of the show. So we want to do that here. So help us do that by leaving some comments. Anyway, let's get into it.
I love that you're leaning into juicing it up.
Juice it up, baby.
Let's go. At running back, Derrick Henry led the way. Even with, low expected fantasy points, I think he was RB 29 expected fantasy points. This guy remains a chart breaker. We maybe have a mini chart breaker here in James Cook, RB 4, with that 59% snap rate. You see most of the players at the top here. This is PPR scoring, so like Dylan Sampson is a little bit higher than you might expect. But most of the players at the top here are in that 65, 70, 80% snap rate range, whereas Cook, Henry, not so much. Travis Etienne with a long run, but only a 62% snap rate. But most of these guys are pushing up higher. Breece Hall is definitely somebody that stands out to me. You can see on the screen here, I've got the route rate as well over on the right. And so two players with clear red flags from a usage standpoint that maybe it wasn't so sustainable are Breece Hall and Dylan Sampson. These are also two players on teams that we don't know how to feel about the offense. The reason I'm comparing them is because we've got a 32% route rate for Breece Hall, a 31% rate for Dylan Sampson, and only a 58% snap rate for Breece Hall. That snap rate dropped when in the red zone. He gave up some work to Braylon Allen there, which a lot of people speculated might be the case. And that's what we saw. So how do we evaluate these guys going forward? He had an identical scoring output to Devon Achane, but I know you and I are both much, much higher on Achane, even though people might think of them kind of similarly, right? Like they're both really talented players, but they're in offenses that have question marks. And honestly, of the two, the Jets looked a lot better in week one than the Dolphins did. But To that point, I would bring up that Achane in the first half, before the game turned into a blowout, had a freaking 90% snap rate, which we've never seen from him in any half of his career, any half of any game. So if that's sustainable, sky's the limit for this guy. He's been like an RB1 candidate with a 60% snap rate. Normally, he's splitting that, but Ollie Gordon did not get in until the second half. So I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah.
Bucky Irving is the last guy I'll hit on here, and then I'm going to throw it to you, Dan, to just whoever is interesting to you from this range.
Yes.
Bucky Irving, I think it seems weird to say he's one of the best buys because he had a good enough game. You know, a lot of running backs underperformed. And so why is he a better buy than any of them? It's because I think that where Bucky Irving was drafted wasn't reflective of this role. I think that there was a lot of concern with the potential for his role to not be super fantasy friendly, like where he maybe loses some work, gives up some work to Rachaad White or whatever. They loaded him up at the end of the year last year, but I don't know if people really were buying into that as like an every game type of situation here for him. And then there's also the Liam Cohen leaving factor. So there's a lot of concern about, what we might be looking at here with a smaller running back who wasn't, drafted super early coming into his second season. But right out the gate, career high snap rate here, had 14 of 17 running back rushes. The offense wasn't as good. They need Tristan Wirfs healthy. They need to play better than we saw in week one. But they were doing a lot of the same stuff. I tweeted out,
yes,
you can watch every touch for Bucky Irving. There's a lot of pre-snap motion stuff going on, a lot of moving and pulling with these blockers. I think that this could just basically be what we got with Bucky Irving down the stretch, which was one of the best players in all of fantasy at any position. And so if you can buy him for that second, third round value, I think it's possible that he's really more up into like approaching that kind of like Josh Jacobs range of players. He's so good, man. This is the prettiest 14 rushes for 37 yards you will ever watch. I love Bucky, man. We're so back.
We're back. And there's a lot of players I want to touch on up here, so I don't know how much time we want to spend on. I'll try to be brief with it. I want to start with Bucky Irving. I really like the point you made about how when we baked his price, what we baked into was potential for him to play in a similar role to last year. I think this is a good sign that it won't be. Now, the plus is they're going to be a better team when Tristan Wirfs get back. My concern is I really like what Jacksonville did in the run game this week. We'll get to that in a moment because I wanted to talk about Etienne. And I didn't love what I saw from the Buccaneers. Yes, they were trying to do things in the run game. They just weren't effective doing it. And part of that may be Wirfs' injury. Part of that may be the loss of Liam Cohen. I also have some concern, Jacob, at least, that Rachaad White's just not fully healthy. And when he's healthy, that role could change. So I want to keep an eye on that. But if it does continue in this path, it's a great call by you. I don't want to put him just yet in the Jacobs range because Jacobs will benefit from just phenomenal game script all year with that defense. And the Bucs just simply don't have the defense the Packers have. Game script isn't going to look quite like that, but I get it. And I like the idea of it. Now I want to touch on a few players here on this list. First one being McCaffrey, my boy. I don't think the usage could have been better in week one for McCaffrey. It's everything I expected. I expected Brock Purdy to use him in the passing game as much as he used him. And the way he used him, it is a PPR cheat code. And that's just without any efficiency on the offense. That's with Trent Williams playing the worst game I've seen in his career with the Niners. I hope that's not a sign of things to come because that will be disappointing to say the least. But that's the type of usage I was looking for in the passing game. Another player I want to touch on, did we overlook Javonte Williams? I mean, just thinking about this situation, right? Let's take a step back. We never loved him. I mean, I did at UNC, but we kind of felt like he might have fallen off as a player. But at the same time, we had the expectation, Jacob, that we want pieces in this Cowboys offense. The volume's going to be there. They're going to be in shootouts. They're going to be in scoring position a lot. It showed up in week one. And ultimately speaking, I don't know if Miles Sanders is going to eat into this role. And Jayden Blue is trending toward being inactive in week two as a coach's decision, not based on injury. So are we looking at maybe the most overlooked player in fantasy? I wanted to get your take on this because it might just be he's in this insane volume role in what we project to be a very high scoring offense.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I had Javonte Williams probably ranked closer to RB50 than RB5, which is where he finished. So
Yeah.
I'll admit I overlooked him for sure. I thought he looked better than expected. I wasn't expecting an 80% snap rate. I think things really went well for him to get there, with Blue being inactive, Sanders fumbling. And also the Eagles, it's kind of like, what are you going to do? You're going to test those corners down the field, or are you just going to like hope that you can try to run it at them? So I don't want to overreact to what we saw in week 1. But it's definitely like a good hit so far. We'll see if he holds on to the role. I think Blue is coming at some point. I think they're going to get him on the field and see what he can do.
We'll see, because it looks like, again, like he's trending toward being inactive. That's a coach's decision. We'll see if that changes. But I think Javonte Williams just potentially could be one of those surprise players. Another surprise player that I think could happen is Travis Etienne. I watched all of the snaps of Etienne. Again, if I'm comfortable with one thing moving forward on the Jaguars offense, it's the run game that Liam Cohen brings out. I wish I could be comfortable about the passing game. I think he did a good job designing open receivers, but man, Lawrence's accuracy was terrible. But when it comes to Etienne, I thought about all offseason, Jacob. Is it possible that 2024 was a season where Etienne was playing through an injury and just wasn't his normal effective self? Because if you look back at Etienne's career, early in his career, when he had those 1,400-yard seasons, and even dating back to his college days at Clemson, he was always in that top 5, top 6 range in forced missed tackle rate, which is really the number one stat I use to determine if a player at the running back position is playing independently of his blocking. You add that in with somebody who I think schemes up a great run game. They just traded Tank Bigsby. I love Tootin, you love Tootin, but even if Tootin does eat into his role a little bit, it seems like Etienne is going to be the lead back on an offense that knows how to design a run game. And at times in his career, he's been a really talented runner, and maybe he's fully healthy now. I wonder if this is sticky. Like I'm starting to look at Etienne as a player who maybe it's not that I overlooked. It's that I was worried about the 3-man committee and Tootin's skill set, but they seem to have trust in Etienne.
Yeah, real quickly on Etienne, this is about what I expected. I thought we would see more Bigsby. I didn't expect to see 16 rushes for Etienne. But as I looked at him, I was like, the best case for Etienne this year is he's kind of like Rachaad White was a few years ago. And that could hit if Tootin doesn't come for his job, which I do think he is. I think Tootin is a monster who is looming and is going to be a problem for Etienne at some point. They have a week 8 bye. So my guess is that you get half of a season of Etienne being somebody you can use. And in the second half, he's like in a 50-50 role where he doesn't get as many touches. But we'll see. I mean, he played well here, obviously. And so if he continues to do that, then maybe just holds on to it all year. I will say, like, I don't have a ton of confidence in the offense and the role. I don't want to get out of control here. The role, DeAndre Swift's role was significantly better.
Sure.
He didn't produce in the same way that Etienne did. But if you're just looking at some of these kind of, B, C tier running backs, there were other guys who had similar or maybe better roles. So I don't want to overreact to it with Etienne.
That's fair. Scrolling back up a little bit through there, I wanted to touch on another player here listed near the top, not at the top, but near the top. And it's J.K. Dobbins, a player who I was definitely very high on this offseason. A little bit, I ended up only with one share of R.J. Harvey at the very end because of this concern. What did you make of how they divvied up those touches in week 1? And just Dobbins, I saw you post about this earlier today, Jacob. He has a career 5.2 yard per carry. And that touchdown run, like I would say 90% of NFL running backs don't score on that touchdown. That's the kind of stuff I've seen on Dobbins' tape since his Baltimore days. That ability to process behind the line of scrimmage, get super low through contact with that low center of gravity, and create stuff that shouldn't be there. Ultimately, I think he did that on that touchdown run.
I think Dobbins is extremely similar to Etienne, but I have more confidence in the offense. I have slightly less confidence in the role. You see his rates were just slightly lower in terms of playing time than Etienne's. And I think, if we're comparing a round 2 pick to a round 4 pick at running back, as much confidence as I do have in Tootin and the fact that he's going to matter at some point, I think you have to expect Harvey is a little bit more likely to get on the field than Tootin. And so it's a really similar profile in my mind. So that looks like a huge hit if you were able to get him really late. And there's a chance, kind of like Etienne, where he could just hold on to it all year. And if the offense is good, like we think, then he's, top 20 running back this year pretty easily. And the upside to break to more if he plays well.
And that's kind of how I envision it. I personally feel like at some point, both of them could be starting running backs. And we've seen that throughout fantasy where there are some backfields that can support two backs. I've always kind of felt like Denver's a great candidate to be that. We'll see if that continues. I didn't love what I saw from Bo Nix in week 1. We can get to that maybe if we talk quarterbacks. A little bit of regression there for sure against what isn't a great defense or shouldn't be a great defense in Tennessee. The other player, though, on this list that we need to talk about because I thought he looked so freaking good on tape, and I obviously got a chance to watch every single snap of his on tape. It's Jacory Croskey-Merritt1, Bill, if he wants to be called that. So obviously the role, despite Chris Rodriguez being inactive, wasn't exactly what we wanted, but I don't really see how they're going to be able to keep him off the field with how good he looked on tape. His touchdown run was just awesome processing and just trust in his ability to win the edge. And it was a great scheme. Like they just, when I watch this team, Cardinals with Petzing, the Commanders with Cliff Kingsbury, there's some, and I feel this way also with Liam Cohen and the Jags. There are some coordinators who just understand how to design run scheme so much better than others, or are just more willing to be creative and diverse in their run game versus like a team like the Giants who are just running duo the entire game. And we see that throughout. I mean, the Bears, I didn't think that was a very diverse run game. The Bengals are the number one culprit I have for that. This is one of those teams, and he, to me, looked like by far and away the best back on the field for the Commanders. How soon can we see that role grow to a point where he is just an every week starter for fantasy?
Yeah, I think it's coming. I think it's coming pretty soon. I think before mid-season, I'm hoping to see him around 50% of the snaps, like maybe a role sort of similar to like Jaylen Warren's role in week 1. But a much better offense and a potentially similar type of explosive player to Warren with more big play potential. Okay. I think that's about what I'm expecting for role. I think Austin Eckler, unless Eckler gets hurt, I think he's going to be around to matter. And even if he does get hurt, it could be Jeremy McNichols stepping in and playing some of those passing down role. So I think it looks great, but it is probably going to be a slow build. And we might not ever see him getting more than like 15 touches per game, but that's great. That's a huge hit. And like you said, the offense, all the offensive stuff looked good. Let me real quick run through like 2 or 3 guys, and then we'll go to break here and move on from the running backs. The people in the chat have asked about 2 players specifically and want to get to them. That's Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. And then they're also curious about Chubba Hubbard. So quickly on Chubba, fantastic. 66% snap rate.
Good as you could ask for.
48% route rate, 5 targets. Receiving touchdown. I didn't know he was allowed to do that. That's great. That's great. In a negative game script, Chubba is looking like a value for sure, and he's a really good player. On the Seattle guys, it was way more Charbonnet. You see 58% snap rate for Charbs. Kenneth Walker was down at 40%. More routes for Charbonnet as well. I think it's possible. We just speculated this on the podcast with Heath. I think it's possible that it was a matchup-based thing here with San Francisco. They went away from the outside zone and stuff like that. San Francisco defends that really well. That's what San Francisco knows. That's what Kyle Shanahan knows. And it's also possible that they were easing Kenneth Walker in. So I don't want to freak out about Kenneth Walker. All you can do is hold. If you want to buy Zach Charbonnet, though, that could be viable. It's possible that if this gets expanded next week, if they just shift it towards Charbonnet, then this will probably be the cheapest that he is all year. He wouldn't be like near the top of the list of running backs that I'm targeting, but if you feel convicted that he's the guy and you don't have enough of him or something, go for it. That makes sense to me.
I would be shocked if Walker's healthy if they are shifting it to Charbonnet. I think it was more matchup based. I'll also say this, a lot of the enthusiasm that we had, and this is really important to note for me at least, based on the preseason, dissipated when I watched that tape. I did not think Seattle was creating a lot in the run game on their own from the offensive line standpoint. I thought Charbonnet did a ton on his own, and I think you see the difference if you watch the tape between Charbonnet and Walker and their effectiveness. That's an individual thing in my mind, the way Charbonnet runs and processes beyond the defense. I'm not ultimately super high on this Seahawks offense after watching them in week 1. I want to be clear, it was an improved 49ers defense with one of, if not the best defensive coordinators in the NFL and Robert Saleh. So maybe it's just that, but I didn't love what I saw. All right, let's take a quick break, and then we're going to get right back into this.
Critics are buzzing. about the new season of Yellow Jackets.
This is not healthy.
Yellow Jackets' new season, now streaming on the Paramount Plus with Showtime plan.
All right, Jacob, let's roll right back into it.
Alrighty, we are looking at tight ends. I want to talk about quarterbacks and tight ends quickly, so I'm going to share my screen here and show you the top scoring
Last night,
tight ends.
Jacob tried to walk me off the edge when it came to Colton Loveland.
Walk you off the edge? Oh, I got you. Yeah. Feeling a bit panicked after 1 week.
I was.
Well, I'll talk about Loveland quickly because he's not going to be anywhere near the top of the list here, and we don't want to spend a ton of time on tight ends. But of course, a lot of people here have Loveland. I don't think there's any need to panic. It's not, ideal that Cole Kmet was blocking his butt off and looked like an important player for this offense. But I think Loveland is going to be an important player for this offense in time. And what I said to Dan was that, at least it wasn't the abject disaster that it could have been in Chicago. First-time head coach, Caleb Williams, terrible vibes coming into the season. Who knows what's going to happen here? Facing Brian Flores. I thought he played okay. There was
Caleb you're talking about?
Yeah, there were some accuracy issues. Of course, he was the least accurate quarterback not named Anthony Richardson last year. He was actually less accurate than Anthony Richardson when throwing deep. And I listened to Robert Mays when he went around and talked to all the beat reporters. He was talking to the Chicago beat reporter, and he's like, what's bothering me is that, Caleb looks less accurate than he did at this time last year. And it's like, what are you talking about? How can that possibly be where we're at? And so I was terrified coming into week 1 that it might just be a meltdown in Chicago. But overall, it's like, okay, I feel pretty good about Ben Johnson here steering the ship. I think that there were some glimpses of competence, even from Caleb. And if he can settle in, I think we could have a good offense. The mobility last night was really impressive from Caleb, which doesn't result in Colton Loveland targets, but it might result in being able to extend drives more and more. I'm not freaking out with Loveland. Did you have anything on Chicago you wanted to get into on the Monday night game?
Yeah, just a little bit since we didn't have a chance to. I thought that Caleb Williams had some of the highest level throws of the week and also some of the worst misses of the week. And it's really interesting. I'll credit James Foster for this. This is good digging on stats. He charted both the last 2 seasons. Caleb Williams leads the NFL, leads all quarterbacks with 52 incompletions that are due to an overthrow per True Media. And that's 17 highest than the next quarterback. It's Bo Nix over the last 2 seasons. As I look through this list of the 10, it's literally all high velocity throwers besides Nix. So I don't really consider to be a high velocity thrower. Everyone else would fit the billing. So I just think that's something we're going to have to deal with. We have Herbert on this list up top, Stafford, players who make big plays. I would say that's not reason to panic in fantasy. Sure, it's frustrating to watch him miss DJ Moore for an open touchdown by overcooking the ball, but one incomplete pass on an overthrow doesn't really knock you that much in fantasy. And it's the high level throws that were there. I thought the offense looked a lot better than at any point with Shane Waldron. I just don't feel great about Loveland's role in this offense yet. I hope that I'm just panicking and it's going to expand.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, is give it time. All right, so let's talk about tight ends. Juwan Johnson, tight end 1, 99% snap rate. half of those coming in the slot.
Unreal.
11 targets, 8 catches, 76 yards, 89 air yards, end zone targets. It's like a dream boat here. Everything you could want for fantasy is there. It's on the Saints, so there's that. It's probably not going to be so dreamy every week. You could have 0 this week. That wouldn't surprise me. Are you picking up Juwan? Are you picking up Harold Fannin Jr.? We're going to get into that later. There's a little teaser for you guys. But yeah, Juwan Johnson, it looks good. And this is a talented player. He's just struggled to stay healthy. But the role looked really, really good in week 1.
Jacob, there are some players in fantasy that just feel timeless, and Juwan Johnson feels that way to me. I feel like I was on the show with Adam and Heath and Jamie at some point 4 years ago talking about him as a late round sleeper at tight end and a breakout. It really does feel like it was 4 years ago. Maybe it was still when Sean Payton was there. That's how dated it is. It's hard for me to buy into this kind of late career breakout for Juwan Johnson, but what I do buy into is that he is going to be on the field almost every snap, if not every snap. I think that was not a product of game script, though. Maybe we see that fall off a little bit if they fall behind more in games. They were in that game the entire time against the Cardinals, so maybe they were able to play more heavy personnel. But I think the way Kellen Moore runs this offense, he's going to utilize him. So yes, if you are tight end needy, I'd say he's worth picking up. He's worth putting a decent chunk, not too much of your waiver budget on, but I wouldn't look to him as like a flex play if you need that.
Yeah. Makes sense. All right, so I've got it sorted by route rate right now. You see Juwan Johnson at the top, followed by Trey McBride at 97%, and then Sam Laporta, tight end 3 at 88%. That was a higher single game than he had all of year 2, so that's encouraging for sure to go along with the 9 targets for Laporta. David Njoku, I wanted to bring up here, 85%, tied with Jake Ferguson and Dallas Goedert for 4th at tight end. So I'm not panicking on Njoku. I don't want to drop Njoku, but I will say that like the way they used him wasn't fantasy friendly. He was out there running a lot of routes, but his horizontally breaking route rate was really, really low. They were kind of weirdly using him down the field a little bit more. This has been a role where Stefanski designs a lot of stuff for Njoku, play action, moves to Njoku to get him out running with the ball in his hands. And we didn't really see as much stuff like that for him, with the offense focusing more on Harold Fannin, who we're obviously excited about. I do think it does affect Njoku a little bit, even though his playing time's not down. But it's just like how many mouths can we really feed here, especially if Flacco isn't there. So that's all worth noting. And if it continues to be low scoring games, then I guess you can drop him. But this number right here, this 85% route rate, makes me want to hold Njoku if I drafted him.
I think he's worth holding. I don't think he's someone I'd be willing to start right now. I think a lot of what he did that made him successful has kind of turned over to Fannin, at least for now. And I think it's always going to be looming over our heads that if they do make a decision, and this is a weird organization that could at any point, in my mind, if anyone's more than willing to do a tank without saying you're tanking, without, so the NFL doesn't penalize you draft pick, it would be this franchise. And so if they do ever turn to Gabriel and Sanders, I think it's going to be an epic disaster for everyone in that offense. Those quarterbacks I don't think are anywhere near capable of playing at the NFL level, either of those two. So I am a little bit worried about that. And if that were the case, I think maybe we'd see more of that role for Njoku again, that shorter role that's fantasy friendly. But right now, more of a stash for me.
Brock Bowers finished as tight end 2 in fantasy, even though he missed a good portion of the game. I know that his snap rate was down in the first half, and that is confusing to me. But I went and looked at his first half route rate, and it was, I think, like 85% or something like that. So that's about as high as any of these guys are going to be. That's still really good. It's slightly below where he was last year. But to me, if he's in that range, it's wheels up. It's all the things we were excited about. Like all the stuff we saw in week 1 was what you and I had talked about as like the potential upside case for Bowers. They had, and part of this is matchup based against Vrabel and the Patriots, really wanting to stop the run and also just playing aggressively in general, playing a lot of man coverage. But the Patriots had the highest rate of single high safety of any team, any defense in week 1. If you look at last year, this is the like ethos behind the whole Bowers thing. The Raiders had the 5th lowest percent of opponent single high safety rates. And the only teams that were above them were all teams that had 2-star receivers. It was the Dolphins, it was the Vikings, it was the Bengals. It was offenses like that. Why are the Raiders on that list? Is because there was no respect for the run game. And it's because Brock Bowers is really, really good and scares the crap out of defenses. But now we have Ashton Genty to scare defenses. And if we are going to get this where defenses aren't just sitting back waiting for Brock Bowers to get the ball and then swarm him, then it unlocks so much for him to go get the ball in one-on-one situations and then also to go create after the catch, which he did in this game. He led all tight ends in yards after the catch per reception. He also had a way, way higher percentage of his routes that were horizontally breaking routes.
Yep.
Both him and Jakoby Myers were above 50%, which is really, really high. It's just one game, but it's a huge change from what we saw last year, where his rate was like 30%. Myers was like 37%, which is relatively low for a wide receiver 1. So to see them right away in this Chip Kelly offense be used in this way is just really, really exciting to me.
I'm super excited. This is a player who we were much higher on than consensus all offseason. We probably would have taken him like top 15 overall. And it's almost like everything you predicted would happen, Jacob, is coming true, or already was coming true from a spatial standpoint, from the ability to, have the space to work with after the catch, the improvement in quarterback play. I mean, 4.12 yards per route run, a first down per route run rate of 16%. These are phenomenal numbers, over 30% target per route run. And I look at it, and to me, a lot of the NFL is simply, can your coordinator create explosive plays via design and via scheme? And that's something I always had faith in with Chip Kelly, but I think we saw that really in week one to an extent that has me super excited about Bowers moving forward. And we're going to get even better game script, by the way, than the one we got in that game too, for Bowers, racking up just more targets, more yards. As long as he's healthy, I think it could be an even better season than his rookie year.
Yeah. For sure. I'm psyched. I just want to hit on a few more tight ends here, and then we'll go to break. Real quickly, I thought Dallas Goedert looked great. He's just an interesting name to know in this range that gets completely forgotten about. Brenton Strange and Tucker Kraft, I was a little bit discouraged about their roles. We didn't see hardly any design targets for Kraft. Strange was great, like with the ball in his hands, but his route rate was low, and so that was a little bit concerning. I thought that the point you brought up about Kyle Pitts on Monday's show was good. I went and watched him. I remember it was like when I watched him play, he looked good, but you don't want to overreact to that. He moved well. I agree. Right? I think that this is the best that he's looked.
The best he's looked at the NFL level, including that rookie year, I thought.
And he had an 83% route rate. So that is relevant for sure. Keep that in mind. The last guy I want to bring up is Dalton Kincaid. It's the same role. He had a big game. He found the end zone. That's great. That's encouraging. 8 yards after the catch, only 4 targets in a game where they threw a ton. So that's a 13% target per route run rate. And he only ran around on 61% of the dropbacks.
Yeah. Obviously, a lot of those players. And by the way, we're going to take a quick break, one more break, and then we're going to get back into more data with receivers and quarterbacks. But before we do that, check it out. We put up a poll here. Which tight end are you more likely to add in your leagues right now? Fannin or Juwan Johnson? Let us know in the comments. Leave a comment, leave a like. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll get right back into this thing.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah.
Alrighty, QB. If I can share my screen here, we've got the QB fantasy point numbers from week one. And then I also wanted to highlight like who was getting design rushes, stuff like that. So at the top, easy, Josh Allen, 39 fantasy points, followed by Justin Fields and Daniel Jones. Maybe not what you'd expect. Jones got 4 design rushes to 10 for Justin Fields, which is a huge number. Jones were all sneaks. Whereas Fields is getting a variety of design rushes. I think this is just like, if he can reach this number, this 10 design rush number consistently, that, like, I've got him at QB6 this week.
Fields you're talking about, right?
Yes, Justin Fields. So I'm buying into that way more than Daniel Jones or really any other QB riser. I guess JJ McCarthy would be the other one who confirmed what we thought he could be, confirmed the idea of himself as a fantasy player, similarly to Justin Fields in a really positive way. He only had 1 designed rush. That was something we thought could be part of his game. And we saw it on that rushing touchdown. That was great.
Yeah.
But he's not, it's not like Fields where it's like, holy crap, if he can get this role each week, he doesn't even need to pass the way that he did. He could put up 20 fantasy points on any given week. McCarthy, it's like, on a fantasy point per dropback basis, QB2 last week.
Wow.
I think it was only Josh Allen was ahead of him, or maybe it was Fields, maybe. Anyway, really, really productive outing for McCarthy in a not easy matchup. I thought the Bears defense played pretty well in that spot. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts on him.
Yeah, McCarthy's a really interesting player for me. It's such a tale of two halves. Like in the first half, I was like, wow, this is everything I worried about with McCarthy. Balls getting bad at the line of scrimmage, low throws that are hard to catch.
I almost texted you on the interception like, oh, no, it's exactly what you outlined.
Exactly what I was worried about. And then it's like everything flipped in the second half. Threw a dime on the Aaron Jones touchdown. The Jefferson throw I thought was really patient by him and just ability to kind of work through it. Design run, I I thought we'd see a little bit more from him just based on what we saw at Michigan. But he also made some good throws throwing to his left, which was really important to me. He hit Jefferson on one. It was like a 16-yard out. So I am open to it now. I have to be. And most importantly, the reason being, Jacob, man, do I like watching that Vikings offensive line. Without Christian Darrisaw, it's crazy how good they looked. In that second half, they were moving guys on the line of scrimmage at will in the run game. Shout out Jordan Mason. I was too low on him, and I owe him an apology. It's an apology tour for Jordan Mason from me, because if that O-line is going to create and generate the amount of push they are at the line of scrimmage, that is going to be a good buy all year, Jordan Mason. And so will McCarthy. It will benefit any quarterback and any offense. So I think that the arrow is definitely pointed up for that offense.
Yeah, man. Jordan Mason, a dog. It was exactly what KOC told us it was going to be, which, to be fair, he said in the past that he's going to, involve Ty Chandler and do more running and stuff like that. But this year, he said it right away. And like everything that we saw them do, all their actions in the offseason pointed towards this. So that is relevant to bring up with McCarthy. Only 24 dropbacks. People in the chat are pointing out that he had under 150 passing yards.
Yeah, volume won't be the same as it was.
It's true. Yeah. If he's going to be a top 12 quarterback, it needs to be like a Jalen Hurts light kind of thing.
Sure.
He's not going to run as much as Jalen Hurts, but he can run. Like Hurts only had 2 design rushes this week. I think that's going to be higher most weeks. But that's kind of the outline. It's like he can get there even with 25 to 30 dropbacks through efficiency. And like we've outlined this whole summer, QB9 in fantasy points per dropback last year for Sam Darnold without any rushing. So I do think he can get there with efficiency, even if the total number of dropbacks is scaled back.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else stand out? We've talked about Justin Herbert. You guys know where we're at. Me and Dan are in love with Justin Herbert. And the fact that the Chargers were so pass heavy in week 1 is really, really exciting. I have him at QB 6 or 7 or something like that this week. Caleb Williams, I think all the running, there wasn't any design running, but the scrambling makes him really interesting for fantasy. He was great. All of his rushing metrics were great last year, all the advanced rushing stuff. So if that continues to stick around, then he can, maybe it'll be fine that he only has 210 passing yards. He was QB9 this week with 210 passing yards. Jayden Daniels, it was kind of a down week. Not worried about that at all. Still 11 rushes, just didn't have touchdowns. Anybody else in this range stand out to you? Jordan Love. I want to hear from you first, but we definitely need to talk about Jordan Love.
We'll definitely talk about Jordan Love. With Jayden, we touched a little bit on the offseason, Jacob, of, sometimes teams get film on these schemes. They get film on these quarterbacks, and they have regression in year 2. We saw it with Stroud, among others. That's not happening for Jayden Daniels based on the tape I saw in week 1. The Giants gave him a lot. Like they were getting pressure with those big 3 pass rushers. It didn't matter. He's so poised. And Debo's a real weapon for him. Like, to me, if I was picking fantasy receiver the rest of the season, I'll take Debo over McLaurin, just to be completely frank and honest about the situation based on what I saw on tape. He's being used as a receiver. He's also using the red zone as a runner. And I think that he'll just get better matchups all year. Like Cliff did such a good job of finding a way to match Debo up against some of the Giants safeties and at times even a linebacker, nickel defender. Like, I just think he's the guy. Like McLaurin will be that outside receiver that Cliff likes to have, and he'll have some matchups against corners who can take him out. But Debo is going to be the motion guy and the guy they get into good matchups. So that's more of a receiver take, but just a thought there. One player real quick, Michael Pennix. Got to give a shout out to Michael Pennix. Against the Todd Bowles defense, week 1, thought he threw the ball really well. He ripped it. I thought that he showed that he can play the blitz, which was something that was the most important thing, again, that I was looking for. And it's not the best defense, despite being a Todd Bowles defense. They don't have the most talent in the NFL, but they have enough talent up there to give him a challenge. So I think now we need, knock on wood, we need Drake London, our boy, to stay healthy. I don't know what's going on with that, if he's even going to play, but we could be looking at a really underrated passing attack with Atlanta because they move the ball with efficiency. They move the ball with pace. Like they're just a fast-paced offense, which I love for fantasy. And I think Pennix can spin the ball. He really can, as long as he can deal with the pressure. So those were the 2 I wanted to highlight on before we got to Jordan Love.
Yeah, Pennix played great. I was definitely excited with what we saw from him, especially down the stretch, making plays, even with his legs, which he normally never does.
Right.
We know he's a good athlete, so that was cool. And he handled pressure really well. All right, so we're getting down into the QB2 range here. Disappointing game for Drake Maye. Only 1 designed rush. That was something that we were hopeful might be expanded upon under Josh McDaniels. Early indications are maybe not. 0.32 fantasy points per dropback is extremely low for Maye. Last year was at 0.5. So I think we'll see that number increase. I think we'll see that number regress to the positive side of things I wouldn't overreact. If anything, I'm like kind of psyched that they let him drop back 53 times. That's crazy.
It is.
Jordan Love, you see his fantasy point per dropback number really high, as it always is. He's top 6 in the NFL in this metric over the past 2 seasons or past 3 seasons, like this one plus the 2 before that. We'll see, like this week, they're obviously able to just control the game on the ground, but like we'll see, I think potentially right away in week 2, if they get into a shootout against Jayden Daniels, if maybe things get aired out a bit more. I don't know for sure that we'll see that because you can run the ball on Washington's defense.
Right.
Although the Giants weren't able to.
Giants created no push up front.
Yeah.
That was one of the worst offensive line performances I've ever seen in the run game.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring up Jordan Love because I thought he played really well. He had one almost really bad interception to Anzalone that was just like, what are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
he cracks me up. But overall played really well. And I thought
that.
Matthew Golden looked really good. Jayden Reed looked really good for as long as he's healthy. Like the weapons are all there.
And I tweeted it at one point with Love. It's like Love looked really good. LaFleur looked even better. Like the way that LaFleur designs routes to create separation. The problem will be volume for me all year. Like I think we're headed toward a lot of game scripts like that one with Green Bay where their defense is just dominant and they just run the football.
Yeah. I just want to point him out that like if you want to buy in on it, he's still cheap, and like he did play super well. But I agree. I do think that there are going to be a lot of games where they're able to just run the ball. Trevor Lawrence did not play well. His charting data wasn't awful, but there were just some really important throws that he missed. He only ends up with 11 fantasy points, 10 fantasy points actually. He did run a little bit more, but he just doesn't look comfortable out there, man.
Nope.
We'll see how he does against Cincinnati in week 2. That's a game where he could have a lot of production, but man, so far I'm just not liking what I'm
Carolina.
seeing.
I mean, Carolina is the worst defense he'll face all year, in my opinion. And they're going to be somebody I'm looking to attack every week in fantasy. Just the throws he misses, it's a lot like Caleb. Like the throws he misses look so bad. That out route to Brian Thomas is just painful to watch.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on Bo Nix, Dak Prescott, Bryce Young, low scoring guys here?
Yeah, look, I mean, I don't want to say it's going to happen because it's not. Sean Payton's so good. But Bo Nix did not look good at all on tape this week. I watched the entire game of that on all 22. And I was a little worried there would be some second-year regression for a player like Nix, who I did not like. Remember when you put out I think this is one of the first ones you did, Jacob, this offseason, like all the charted throws of Nix from 20 plus. And his first half of the season, he was the worst quarterback, I think, in the league besides Caleb on 20 plus. And then he kind of got comfortable and started to play good. The problem I have is like, are they going to take away some of those concepts that he leaned on in the second half and force him to do other things? I felt like in this game, the second interception he threw was just a horrific decision. Like it's a design throwback route. So you have him moving in the pocket left and throwing back right, but he just doesn't see the DB sitting into that zone and he throws right into it. So that's the one I just have circled of like, it's one game. I'm not going to make a lot out of it, but I was never super high on Nix to begin with. So I just want to make sure that there's no regression there because that will impact everyone there in that passing game.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it too. It was a weird game for him. He made some bad decisions for sure. But you do see 4 design rushes, 8 rushes overall.
True.
So we could see a bounce back, but man, it wasn't good. I think we'll get a bounce back from Dak Prescott for sure.
Yes.
And I feel reasonably confident that we're going to see better days ahead for Bryce Young.
Not as sold, but definitely Dak.
Totally fair. I'm pretty worried about CJ Stroud and the Texans.
This was one of my sleeper picks, and now I already want to quit it.
Yeah. All right.
And it sucks because Stroud's so talented. It's just the environment is as bad as it gets. And the problem I have, Jacob, we both, I don't know if you had it, but I had Nico really ranked insanely high, wide receiver 3.
Oh, yeah.
And it's based on talent. It's based on his data, his fantasy production. It didn't impact him last year the same way it seems like it might this year. I don't know if I want to chalk it up to that yet. Let's see what happens there when Kirk gets back on the field. Let's see what happens there when they're not facing a pass rush like the Rams, who quite frankly, like with Verse and those players in there, might be one of the better in the NFL. But it looked bad, man.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna move on to receiver, and then we'll get to some waiver wire, some listener questions. Get out of here. At wide receiver, at the top end, you've got the Sunday night crew, Zay Flowers and Keon Coleman. If I can share my screen here, Quinten Johnson as well. Quite the group here. Are you buying anybody from this top range? Emeka Egbuka, Deebo Samuel, you said you're pretty excited about. Michael Pittman, wide receiver 8. Marquise Brown, wide receiver 9. Keenan Allen, wide receiver 10. So a lot of unexpected names
Yeah.
Who stands out to you?
A lot of players stand out here. Debo, like I mentioned earlier, I kind of gave the analysis of that. Puka, who we talked about with Heath on the Dynasty show, really excited about what I saw from him. More of a downfield role than I expected, which is really important to me because if you're going to have Evans as the outside X receiver, and he's always going to get most attention, I think, on that offense, and you have Puka running like backside digs and backside posts like we saw on that game-winning touchdown. If he can win those routes, which he did at Ohio State, despite not having testing speed, and he did on that game-winning play against the Falcons this past week, it's going to be a really good role. So Puka, arrow up for him. Quinten Johnson, man, like totally overlooked in a lot of ways because of all his horrible drops and some of the issues he's had as a wide receiver. Maybe just developing into a player that is going to be fantasy relevant, has that added year of rapport with Herbert that no one has. Like, what did Herbert do in this first game? He was basically perfect on tape. In my opinion, it was by far and away the best quarterback film of the week, including Lamar, including Josh Allen. Go watch it. Every single drop back was almost perfect. And he got it to the guys that he had rapport with, Keenan Allen and Quinten Johnson. A little bit of, featuring Trey Harris for a moment or two. Then that awesome play where he just diagnosed the defense before the snap and hit the tight end. But Quinten Johnson might be a thing if what you said is true earlier, Jacob, which is Harbaugh's finally willing to say, I don't care, Greg. I know what you want to do offensively. We have Justin Herbert. We need to be a pass-first offense. Another player that stands out on this list, and I mentioned him earlier, or I might have mentioned this on the show with Heath, Pittman, because from what I saw on tape, and I did watch the Jones tape because my co-host Nick made me do it, it was Pittman and it was Tyler Warren. The offense was going through those two players. So that just always interests me in fantasy when there's a potential for a volume suck up like it is there. And then Keenan Allen, we mentioned him earlier, Marquise Brown, like a lot of players who I have a little bit more faith in than I thought I would.
That's because the role was great.
Yeah.
8 targets for Pittman, 16 targets for Marquise Brown, 10 for Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen played a lot. I thought it was really interesting that they played Ladd McConkey in the slot more than Keenan Allen. It was similar rates, but I thought it was going to be like pretty much primary Keenan Allen in the slot. But he was still able to win outside, caught 7 to 10 targets, looked pretty good out there. Marquise Brown is literally like in the Rashee Rice role. He's not nearly as good as him. And we'll see how it goes.
By the way, doesn't that make me so tilted, Jacob? Because I was saying that if Worthy was going to be healthy, he was going to be in that role more this season. I really feel strongly that he would have been.
Yeah, for sure.
So frustrating.
Tough matchup against the Eagles here, but he's definitely going to be a popular waiver wire ad, and for good reason. I just do want to point out that, like, if you look at the underlying stuff, like his route win rate and stuff like that, not good. So probably just a short-term play. Debo, I back up what you said. I thought he looked really good. Puka Nakua moved into the slot more than we've ever seen. 53% slot rate. He caught 10 out of 11 targets. He's just a beast. Alrighty.
It's interesting, though. Like, scroll up a little bit to that. These numbers, I mean, he always has elite numbers, but these numbers are insane there. I was looking at it earlier. 5.91 yards per route run, 32.3% targets per route run. I mean, we're talking about just a dominant performance. If he is taking more of that Cooper Kupp role, he's going to be a cheat code for fantasy.
Yeah. Jaxon Smith-Njigba did it all, and he did it on the outside with only a 29% slot rate. Really encouraging stuff for him. If the offense gets better, then maybe he can just continue to scale this upward into more and more fantasy points. Cortland Sutton, even with a terrible Bo Nix day, still had 18 fantasy points. That touchdown catch was awesome. He's the man. I think Jakoby Myers is really interesting. It's worth noting that there was no Christian Gonzalez in this game on the other side of things to slow him down. But he was, honestly, I think he got a target receivers and players in general against the Patriots for now. This is not what I was expecting from Mike Vrabel defense, but they were not tackling at all.
There's just no talent. Like,
Jakoby Myers had like 6 or 7 avoided tackles. So good stuff. Good stuff from him here. Boutte, we've talked about Kayshon Boutte. There's some underlying metrics over the past like year or so that paint him as a potentially like good NFL level player. I like that he's right next to Cedric Tillman here in fantasy points because they're both guys that were talented, college players, but then nobody cared about them really. They were just kind of a little overlooked. And they both seem to be just shaping into like really solid pros. So keep an eye on them. They're both waiver wire guys. We'll talk about them more later and how we stack up the waiver wire options. Odunze last night, 9 targets, was a clear wide receiver 1.
Yes.
I thought it was weird that his air yards were so low. 55 air yards on 9 targets, only 37 receiving yards. He played in the slot, but there was no clearly defined slot guy. Zacchaeus was in the slot the most, but they moved all the Bears in and out of the slot. Did you have any thoughts on Rome from last night's game?
Yeah, Rome Odunze, not the role I was projecting for him, but definitely a good role in this offense and something that we can hope for. I know we saw positive signs with Caleb and some really high-level throws. I felt like he just didn't look all that comfortable just yet in this offense, though, and I think that's why we didn't see a lot of those downfield targets that we might be expecting. He tried one with Rome that just didn't connect on, but we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. Ricky Pearsall, we're super psyched about. The film is great. The data is great. Averaged over 3 yards per route run in this game. The role is great. We love the way that the route concepts come together for him, and now George Kittle is hurt too. So if you can buy Pearsall, I think this might be the cheapest that he is all year. Man, who knows what to do with Jayden Reed? He had a big game, but only a 52% route rate. I'm definitely I would be more inclined to buy Golden for cheap or scoop Golden if he gets dropped or something like that.
Okay.
Because he looked really, really good too. Like I freaking loved his film, watching him run routes, and I think his role is only going to increase. Whereas I don't really have any confidence that Reed's role will increase. This is basically all that we ever see him get to do. Chris Olave, we saw step into the pre-snap motion, a little bit more slot work. 41% of his routes came in the slot. The result was 13 targets. They're not going to produce so much passing offense every week, and so sometimes it's only going to be 7 targets, and on those weeks, it's going to be 30 yards or whatever. That's going to suck. So I don't want to get you guys too excited for Olave, but 13 targets, 97 air yards, a lot of pre-snap motion use. All that looks really good to where this 12.4 points that we got feels like kind of the floor in this type of a game with this type of usage. But quarterback, of course, is the issue here. How about some Malik Nabors thoughts in our first look at Russ? It was not much better than last year.
Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
Do you have anything for me? Do you have anything to make me feel better?
Well, the thing that would make you feel better would just be that the offense was still designed to get Malik Nabors the ball, like we saw last year. It's an offense that's designed around one player, which is for better or worse, because for the Giants, it's definitely for worse. I think the issues right now are, one, their offensive line can't block, and Andrew Thomas, when he returns, will help that immensely. But two, Russ just had his worst game almost ever as a pro. His completion percentage over expected was 3rd worst of his career. He dealt with pressure worse than I've ever seen him. Even there were signs that he was kind of regressing a lot last year with the Steelers in that regard, taking more sacks than even he was used to, but it looked worse than ever. So the positive would be Jackson Dart will probably play quicker than we expect.
Yeah, hope so. If Dart's in, man, it really could get nuts. He was open a ton. I tweeted out all of his targets if you want to watch him.
Yeah, that's the thing. Nabors looked great on tape.
Yeah.
2 of those routes, he created more separation than any receiver looked like in the NFL this week. It's just quarterback play wasn't there. I mean, he should have also had a 50, 60-yard touchdown. Russ diagnosed, took a 3-step drop, threw a ball out there where he had one-on-one coverage. It's an easy touchdown, but Russ underthrew it.
Yeah. People in the chat want to hear about Khalil Shakir, that we skipped Khalil Shakir, and he always gets skipped, so I don't want to do that to him. 90% route rate for Khalil Shakir is really good. I checked to see if that was backed by him playing more in 2 receiver sets or something like that, and it wasn't. So I think this is kind of a random thing where the Bills went really pass heavy,
Yes.
I don't expect that to stick necessarily, but he's a really good player. He's going to have some big weeks, and I think even his low weeks are going to look kind of like this, somewhere in that 8 to 12 range, and that's pretty good for PPR. Tedero McMillan, stud.
Your boy.
He looked really good. He definitely passed the eye test. All the underlying volume numbers that you want were there. If this offense plays better, Tedero McMillan's going to be a top 15 fantasy receiver. If you get a player that's this good in this kind of a role, it's going to be hard for them to not produce. The bear case, the worst way it could go is Drake London was this good and was in this type of a role, but wasn't that productive early on.
Because of the quarterback play.
Because of the quarterback play. But that was all-time worst quarterback play. I hope that we're not going to get there this year with Dave Canales and Bryce and everything.
Sure.
DK Metcalf, 12 points. Pretty good usage for him. They kind of, designed stuff around him. I was surprised that his average depth of target was only 4 yards.
He looked good too, moving.
Yeah.
That might be an L for us, DK Metcalf. If Aaron Rodgers continues to play like this, Rodgers looked great, I thought, for what I was expecting.
Yeah, Maybe, because Rodgers had the big game. This could have easily been a much bigger game for Metcalf if he could have found the end zone. And if Rodgers is going to throw 4 touchdowns every game, then
Probably not. But
yeah, I'm not too worried about it being an L.
Okay.
He might be a good pick at his ADP or whatever, but the reason we weren't taking him is because we thought other guys give us more realistic access to being like a league-winning pick. And I thought that the chance of Metcalf becoming a league-winning pick was like 1% or something. It felt really unlikely that we get that kind of outcome from Arthur Smith and the Steelers.
True.
Jerry Jeudy continues to just get outscored by Cedric Tillman in the games that they've both been healthy in. So I think that's interesting. He might have been overvalued this year.
Can I talk about a player that I see on this list that scared me from week 1?
Yes, please.
Davante Adams, man. I was really high on, and maybe it's 1 week, so I don't want to give up yet.
Let me help you feel better.
Yeah.
He crushed. If you look at the route win rates and all of that from Fantasy Points data, it looks like one of the best receivers last week. And they used him in ways that I like. I think it should be better.
Okay.
If you had more, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it's I think I might just have the antidote for you right here. Travis Hunter, I don't have the same kind of hopium for you. His underlying, route win rates and success rates and all that stuff didn't look super great.
Yeah.
I think his designs, it wasn't very exciting what we got from Liam Cohen. It was kind of bland. I think we'll get more going forward, more texture to what we get from Hunter. But it was basically just slot stuff. He had a 69% slot rate and a 7.4 yard average depth of target. The result was 6 catches for 33 yards. His snap rate was kind of low, but his route rate was 84%. That's totally fine for the first game of a rookie wide receiver's career. Rashid Shaheed's the man. I think better days are going to be ahead when he gets some deep balls. He only had 33 yards in this game, but 9 targets for the player who has averaged the most fantasy points per target since entering the NFL is a good start. Anybody else in this range? We're worried. We're a little bit worried about the Lions receivers, man. You see Isaac Tesla here almost matching Amon-Ra St. Brown as the top scoring wide receiver for the Lions.
Yikes.
With only 3 routes run. We've talked about them at numerous points along the way. I'll talk about them on tomorrow's show too and get into some of the more detailed stuff. Do you have any DJ Moore thoughts after last night's game?
Yeah, the Moore role was pretty weird. I thought obviously getting those carries in the backfield, which we were tipped off that might happen and did happen, but I was kind of expecting the role that Odunze played to be Moore's role. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So, man, I just have concerns right now about this Bears offense from what I saw. I know it was better than last year, but I don't know. And maybe it's just Brian Flores doing Brian Flores things. There was one unbelievable play where I saw Brian Flores put everyone on the line of scrimmage and rotate 4 different players in his secondary before the snap to confuse Caleb. So great defensive coordinator.
Yeah, for sure. We got 94 air yards for DJ Moore on 5 targets. So that's an average depth of target of 19 yards. I thought that was interesting. I was really curious how they would use their weapons here, and it'll probably shift around week to week. But so far it was more down the field than Odunze, which is not what I expected. I thought we'd see more catch and run stuff for Moore.
Ridley's an interesting one too. Someone we talked about a lot this offseason. What did you think about his game?
I haven't gotten to Titans film yet. My guess is it's just Surtain erasure.
Possibly.
But I definitely want to get into that more.
He had a big drop too toward the end of the game.
Yeah, to give you a take on Ridley. I'll do that before tomorrow's show.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean the role is there. Rookie quarterback going into Denver in week 1. It's just I don't know if we could have expected anything really here.
Their defensive line was so overwhelming. Watching that game, it was unbelievable.
George Pickens, people, I hope
not panicking.
I hope that you're doing all right. Yeah, I mean, I'm coming up on some big BTB guys here. Nico Collins, George Pickens, giving you 11.5 combined points. Some of you probably had both of them, and I'm sorry you lost week 1. I'm not panicking on Pickens. I'm less panicked on him than Nico, where I'm very worried about the Texans. Obviously, I'd rather have Nico, and I'm not going to trade Nico away. But Pickens, I think I feel really good about what we saw from a role standpoint. I guess I saw one Twitter report, and I don't even remember who it was, so I hope it's not credible. But somebody was saying they felt like on the routes where it wasn't designed to George Pickens, he wasn't remaining engaged. I didn't see that. The fantasy points data charting doesn't show a player who was losing a lot of routes or anything like that. I'm not worried about it. I don't think. Like I felt like the role is pretty good, and they're not going to play the freaking Eagles every week. So I think we'll get some big Pickens games coming up pretty soon. Jayden Higgins had a good week. He looked good out there. I think he's somebody who's going to see his role scaled up. I think they need him.
Same.
I think we pretty much got it covered here. Any Juwan Jennings thoughts?
Well, the injury, we don't know what's going to happen there now. It's definitely not great with a shoulder, but and also with Purdy hurt too.
100% route rate for Cooper Kupp. Torrey Horton did get in there. I think he ran 16 routes or something like that. They did not give him a single target. So for the sick beyond the box score listeners who are wanting Torrey Horton to take time from Cooper Kupp, we got a long road ahead of us. If that's
100% route rate for Kupp and 2 catches for 15 yards. That's insane.
Yeah, honestly, that might be the takeaway.
Wow.
All righty, good stuff. We did every position. If there's anybody that you really feel like you need an update on, let us know that we didn't get to. But I think we did a pretty good job there.
Yeah, just a reminder.
Good.
Sorry. Go ahead, Jacob.
No, if you get a reminder, I was just going to move the show on.
Big reminder, and then we'll move the show on. Tomorrow, Wednesday's show, will be usage reports. So you're going to get even more in-depth, even more of the nerdy stuff that you love on this show. So just keep an eye out for that. So let's move it on, though.
Yeah, let me. I'll do some plugging here, too. Do you know that sometimes the commenters call me the Plug Prince?
The Plug Prince. I like that.
We've got the plug god, of course. But yeah. Okay, so FFT newsletter plug. Early look at week 2 rankings will hit your inbox tonight. We're shooting for like 5 Eastern time, as long as that works with Dan the Man scheduling.
Yeah, the earlier the better.
All right. And another thing that I think will be fun, I'm hoping this will be on the, I'll be able to send out 2 newsletters each week, but man, there's just so much to watch this first week to try to most of the time, once you're into the rhythm of the schedule, you already have a good idea of what every team's doing. So you only need to maybe get into every single play, with a few teams. But week 1, it's I literally want to know what's happening with every single team, every single defense. How did we get here? And on that note, that's what the typical Monday newsletter offering is going to be, is this, how did I get here? It's an interdimensional cable reference. Does that mean anything to you, Dan?
Rick and Morty, right?
Nice. All right. Yeah. Really ridiculous.
Rick and Morty used to be one of my favorite shows. And then I don't think I've even watched the last 3 or 4 seasons.
Totally fair. Yeah. But
is it good anymore? Is it still what it was?
It's okay. Me and my brother watched a few episodes of the new season. It's all right. Yeah.
It's only all right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was genius. The first season was literally genius.
It's good stuff. So how did I get here? Looking at some of the most perplexing performances from the previous week, along with a look ahead's ranking set for the upcoming week, and then a waiver wire rundown. That's the typical Monday, Tuesday. This week, it's all going to be conflated into just this Tuesday one's about to hit inboxes. And then the next newsletter that will hit your inboxes is on Friday. That's in the lab. So producer Aaron is going to put a link in the show description on YouTube for you to find this. It's a Google form. It's a space for you to ask about clarity, about a player, coach, matchup, depth chart, situation, scheme, tendency related stuff, whatever you would find value in me expanding upon in the FFT newsletter. That's for you. So Google FFT newsletter. If you don't know what I'm talking about, all this stuff will hit your inbox each week for free. It's good stuff. All right, let's talk about the waiver wire. What I found is Bashal Tutin is the first place you need to start. Obviously, it's dependent on what you need positionally.
In your league, of course. He's rostered in a lot of leagues.
But that's first thing I'm doing with any waiver wire is checking to see if he's there.
Sure.
And potentially, after the initial waiver wire runs, see if anybody dropped him.
Yes.
He's available in 29% of leagues right now. Not everybody is tuned in enough to know that Tank Bigsby got traded to the Eagles to be a kick returner, So some people might just see his score and drop him because they want to pick somebody else up. So definitely get him if he's available. The number 2 priority for me is Harold Fannin Jr., who is only rostered in 6% of CBS leagues. Number 3 is Hollywood Brown for me. Especially if you need somebody right now, then you can move him up as high as 1. Number 4 would be Rashid Shaheed, who's available in almost half of leagues. And number 5 would be Cedric Tillman. I think those 2 are similar, where they could help you right now. They might help you all year long. We're going to go position by position. But is there any clear reordering that you would do with how I just listed like my top 5 priorities?
Just Hollywood to 1 for me. I don't know ultimately what will happen with Worthy. Looks like he's going to try to play through this. I saw the risk of re-injury is super high. What we saw from Hollywood in week 1, you mentioned it earlier, playing some of that role. Now it's a short-term fix, obviously, as you mentioned, 1 with Worthy, 2 with Rice. I mean, when Rice comes back, man, you are going to be so right about that offseason call, I think, with Rice, Jacob. He's going to be a dominant fantasy player. But for now, the only other player that I would consider moving in there, I like Tillman a lot. I like that call, is Kayshon Boutte.
What about Quinten Johnson?
Oh, yeah, I did mention
only rostered in 38% of leagues on CBS.
He's not rostered in a lot of leagues. You know what? Let me alter that a little bit. Let me put Quinten Johnson all the way up to number 1.
Ayo, wow.
Yeah, I'll say this. I haven't been a fan of his throughout his career. His TCU tape was bad. He had issues, I think, with just tracking the football, adjusting to it in the air. He was not a hands catcher, but I thought he looked pretty good in week 1. I also feel like it just could be the type of player that needed time to develop. And he has the best rapport besides Keenan Allen with Justin Herbert. And I stand by what I said earlier. It looks to me like Harbaugh has looked at the situation, understood I need to be a pass first offense because I have the best quarterback in the NFL besides Burrow at processing defenses and getting the ball on time with velocity and ball placement. And that's what it looked like in week 1. Quinten Johnson.
What about him or Keenan Allen? They're both available in a lot of leagues.
Oh, yeah. I got to go Keenan over him in a PPR league, but I'll take Johnson in non-PPR.
Okay. So we've got Hollywood, Keenan Allen, QJ.
Would it shock you if QJ has 10 plus touchdowns this year?
No, it wouldn't shock me. He already has 2, right?
Right.
Yeah. Shaheed over Tillman for you?
Tillman over Shaheed for me.
Okay. All right, we're going to get through some of these players we might drop as well, like who you can and can't drop. But first, I want to go position by position and kind of round out our big board who we're prioritizing here. And just as I'm looking at these top guys, and I want to make sure that the sentiment is shared here. And if it's not, just let me know. But there's no this year's Puka Nakua, right? People are saying Harry Fannin might be that, and no. I guess he might, but I don't really see it. I know that we said that on that superlative show where we're talking about if everything comes together, and that could, if Joe Flacco starts all year and Njoku gets hurt or something, or Judy, whatever, but
no one's going to have as concentrated an offense as a Sean McVay offense. That was part of why Puka happened.
I don't see anybody that you need to go below the bank for. I think what kind of percentages are you throwing out for some of these top players? 20%?
Low. I'm leaving my budget. I think the highest might be in the 15% range.
Okay. I think you're probably
I might not
getting Hollywood or Fannin. I'm fine going.
Same.
If you're in a deeper league where you can hold Fannin and see what happens, or if you really need Hollywood Brown, I'm fine going up to 25 or even 30% on these guys. It feels aggressive, but you just don't really. We're probably going to find better options going forward, but we don't know. And if you think
you're right.
If you think Hollywood helps you win right now, that's important.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think, in generally speaking, in fantasy, saving your budget is overrated for the most part. But I think your piece of advice that you didn't mention yet on the show, but I saw you tweet about it earlier, Jacob, that stands out most to me is, and it depends on your league's format and settings, but if your league's one of those leagues that runs a second waivers for the drop players, that's where I'm really targeting using a lot of my budget. I think we're going to see a lot of the best players available this week dropped from teams after the first waiver run, is that's just typically how it goes. So I'd be saving some budget for that, keeping an eye out on that. I don't want to blow too much of my week 1 budget.
All right, let's talk about some week 2 quarterbacks. We've got Geno Smith at 35% available. 35% rostered, sorry. Michael Pennix, 53% rostered. Daniel Jones, 30% rostered. And Joe Flacco at 11% rostered. What do you think about those four? Anybody stand out to you as a must-add, or are you just fine with any of them?
I'm definitely not fine with any of them. I would never start.
I will never say I'm fine with Daniel Jones. Don't put that on me.
Do not put that on me, especially against the Denver defense. Now, at the same time, if Daniel Jones torches the Denver defense, you might not hear from me for the. No, I'm joking. But it's going to be a dark day in my life. But as far as who I'm targeting of those players, I mean, are we assuming he's going to play? I want to say Geno, because I like the idea of Geno at home on Monday night and what could be a shootout, but I don't want to do Geno unless Bowers is playing. I'm just so unsure of this Bowers situation. I thought Bowers was going to be fine to go. And then Carroll said he was day to day. And Carroll's like typically the most optimistic coach from a coach. Like I was looking at the Coach Speak Index. It's like everything he says is the overly optimistic. And if he has any sense of pessimism, I'm not as thrilled. Who were the other two options?
We've got Geno Smith,
After
Michael Pennix, Daniel Jones, and Joe Flacco.
Okay. Let's see. So it'll be between Flacco, who I don't want to do against the Packers.
Can I share my screen here, Aaron, and show people the rankings for QB for this week?
You know what? Pennix. It's a pretty easy one to me. I said it earlier. I'm going to be targeting this Panthers defense all year in fantasy. I watched that tape. I thought they were horrible. Everything about that Panthers defense looked so overmatched from a talent standpoint.
Totally fair. To be clear, though, Panthers are playing the Cardinals. I've got.
Whoa, was I looking at the wrong schedule? It looks like I was. I was already rolled over to week 3. Who is Michael
Pennix? Is playing. Yeah, Brian Flores in Minnesota.
No, I don't like that either.
I've got Pennix at QB 23. I've got Geno Smith at QB 20 against the Chargers.
Geno for me.
That could be a shootout. Tua might get dropped. He could have a big game against the Patriots.
I'm not doing that one.
Implied totals. I know, but the implied totals look pretty good for him.
Sure.
Like, is it him or Daniel Jones?
Good question.
We're talking about Superflex leagues where like maybe you are making that decision.
Yeah.
Or deeper leagues.
I have one decision: Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold in a Superflex, and that'll be a fun one to make. But yeah, I think I would probably go Tua there.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Oh, JJ McCarthy is still available in 28% of CBS leagues. So check and make sure that he is not available in yours, because I've got him at QB 11 on the week. Seems insane, but the implied total is really good for the Vikings. And I think that could be a shootout against Atlanta.
Agreed.
At running back, same thing here with Tootin. If we get, Cam Scatterboo or Jadon Blue, if any of those guys get dropped, definitely keep an eye out for that, because there are players who are going to get dropped. The waiver wire options in the initial run aren't all that good. What I scrounged up here was Kyle Monangai, 13% rostered, DJ Giddens, 11% rostered, Brashard Smith, 7% rostered. Is there anything at running back that stands out to you from week 1?
I think it's the players who might get cut. Scatterboo got the first red zone goal line touch for the Giants. Didn't score because Marcus Bowe blew a block, but that'll be a touchdown next time. And he looked really good. Like in the preseason, I was a little worried. I talked about this with you on one of the shows. Like, just thought he looked injured. He looked fresh and explosive. So I think
that reception where he's just throwing guys off him was like, let's go, dude. Where'd you stop?
Yeah, it was awesome. And more importantly, I think for his chance of playing more is that he did really good in his blitz pickup. The one opportunity he got, it was the best blitz pickup of the day for the Giants. So Scatterboo's the one that would come top of my list, and I think he'll be available in a bunch of leagues.
Love that. Okay. It would be Monangai for me, but we did see a lot of DJ Giddens.
I think it was game script dependent, though.
Well, of course, yeah. It was not until the game was a shootout, but it's just like he does seem like he's the clear RB2. They've seemed to like him a lot.
We did too. We liked his tape.
And then Brashard Smith, I think, is notable because he was on the field early for the Chiefs. We could see him. I think it makes sense to try to give him some looks because the team needs some explosiveness right now. Here we are again with the Chiefs, where it's like, are we really giving Kareem Hunt the ball over and over? Like, we are. Something.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, well, at least this year they have him. They didn't even have him as an option last year, and so I'm wondering if maybe he will get his role expanded, because he was on the field in the first half. He was getting like one of the first or second drives. He was out there doing stuff, running routes.
Which they told us he would be, by the way, earlier in this offseason when they drafted him.
Some other receivers to consider. We mentioned Hollywood. We mentioned Shaheed, Cedric Tillman. Isaac Tesla, I think, is really interesting. He barely played, but he's available in most leagues. To me, the like stash away guys are like him, Ayuk, but Ayuk is not nearly as available as him.
Yep.
Luther Burden, but same thing. He's only out there in like 50% of leagues. And then it's like Tesla, Torrey Horton, and Elik Ayamanor for the Titans.
Yeah.
Those are guys that you can probably get in even some of the deeper leagues that I think are going to potentially be relevant at some point this season. And then Jaden Higgins, I would bring up as like just a really interesting guy who's only rostered in 49% of leagues. The Texans need something to, jumpstart this offense. And it could be him. According to Fantasy Points data, he ran really well in terms of like route win rate in week 1.
Out there.
Yeah. So keep an eye on Higgins, maybe even just add him if you want to like pick him up and be early to the waiver wire rush for week 3 or whatever. The only other tight end other than Fannin, if you're looking to replace George Kittle, is Britton Strange is only rostered in 40% of leagues, and that's way too low. We're both fans here. Big beyond the box score guy here, Mr. Strange. All right. Does anyone stand out to you as like more than a 2 to 5% bid outside of the top guys we gave of Hollywood, Tootin, Keenan Allen, QJ, Shaheed, Tillman, like anybody else we just ran through worth it? Maybe Higgins.
Maybe Higgins. Higgins is the one with the most upside there. And honestly, Tesla as well. Just look, it's going to take time with Tesla. Obviously, it's a stash play. But you saw what Jacob saw. I mean, like the touchdown catch he made was phenomenal. The ability to high point.
We need to talk about Kayshon Boutte. We just talked about him with Heath. We just did a show right before this. So it's like some of those are like fresh on the brain. It's like, did we talk about it? Did we not? Yes. No, I don't think you need to pick up Tyler Beatty. They phased him out in the second half. I think it's possible we won't really see that going forward.
God.
I mean, if you're like in a deep dynasty league, sure. But like
we need to give those touches to Harvey ASAP.
Yeah. But Boutte played really well, and we've seen him play well in the past, and Stefon Diggs was eased in and maybe is washed according to some people. So like it could just be Boutte season, baby. And he's available in basically every league.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I want to blow too much of my budget on a player like that, but I think it's definitely somebody who looked good at one point in LSU, as I mentioned before. He was considered a potential first-round pick. Had some weird off-field stuff, but maybe is coming into his own. It wouldn't be the most surprising development. One player that I do see, though, in the chat that I did want to mention to you. So we talked about him a little this offseason and kind of like fell off of him. Trey Benson looked really good, I thought, in his touches and had more of a role than he had at the beginning of last season. The Cardinals kind of talked up him getting more involved. I love that run scheme with Petzing. I like the way that they operate the run game, and I loved his talent at Florida State. So I think if he's available in your leagues, he's a good stash.
Yep, that's a good segue for what I was going to talk about next, which is like players who might get dropped or who you might be considering dropping. I wouldn't think you'd be dropping Benson because he had a big run, but he's only rostered in 65% of leagues, so he's kind of right on the periphery here with some of these guys. I think I'm holding Benson anywhere that I can. I do think it's going to be Connor, but they are mixing him in. They're getting him some drives and stuff like that. I guess what I'm saying is I think it'll only continue to swing like more towards Connor. I don't think it's like Benson's going to start taking over or anything like that. That would just really surprise me. I think,
but I do also think I agree with that take, Jacob, and I think it's spot on. But I do also think of all the stashes you can have at running back, A, given Connor's injury history, and B, the role that I expect, he would be one of the guys who I think is legitimately like a just pure workhorse if Connor were to go down. I'm not sure I feel that way about like Manungai or like some of these other players.
What's the most encouraging to me was that Amari DeMercado wasn't out there.
Right.
And so it was just a two-man backfield, and it's possible that if Connor went down, that Benson would basically just have like 80% of the work or something like that.
Right.
Last year it was like DeMercado played the passing downs, and if Connor went down, I was pretty sure it'd be like a 50-50 split or 60-40 or something like that. My guess is DeMercado would play now if it was just the two of them, but it would just be like strictly like 2-minute offenses and stuff like that. That's my guess. It's like, so compare him to Ray Davis, who's like a handcuff, but there's clearly the Ty Johnson thing going on. I think Ty Johnson's a lot more entrenched in the offense than DeMercado, who didn't even play this week.
Completely agree with that take. Yep.
Yeah. All right. So Ray Davis, is that somebody that you would drop? How about, Najee Harris, Rashad White, Tyler Algier, Caleb Johnson? Those are, I think, players that people might be considering dropping this week. For us, it's clearly don't drop Scatterboo, don't drop Jaden Blue.
Yep.
Well, I guess I don't want to speak for you on Blue. You were maybe a little concerned with like the coach decision to not play him, or are you good with that?
Yeah, I definitely don't love that he might be a coach is inactive this week.
Couldn't it be injury and they're just like not disclosing it necessarily?
The only reason I don't think it is that is the way it was framed. It was like Jerry Jones saying that Mozzie Smith, who's fully healthy and just a total epic bust of a draft pick by them, and Jaden Blue will be inactive. He's mentioned in the same breath as in like it's a coach's decision. So I don't know.
It kind of looked like a high ankle sprain at first. I know they said it wasn't, but that happens a lot. It wouldn't surprise me if it's just like a slow build and then he's out there. They've been kind of weird about Phil Maffa too, where they like put him on the IR. It didn't seem like it was that serious. I don't know. I would hope to not drop him, but I get it if he's like burning a hole in your roster and you need somebody like Keenan Allen to try to help you win or something. But I think Blue really, if you're looking at just pure stashes, he's like an Isaac Tesla, where it's like there's real upside here. We don't know exactly what it could be, but it could be really big.
Yeah.
So I would not want to drop him. How about him compared to Caleb Johnson? Like, do you think Caleb Johnson has that hypothetical upside, or are you more okay dropping him?
I was so high on Johnson coming out of the draft for this.
He's rostered in 95% of leagues.
Yeah, I'm turning the page fast. I think on Caleb Johnson, one, I don't think the Steelers' offensive line is blocking the way I expected it to. And maybe that'll come with time. Arthur Smith's offenses have seriously been dominant in the run game, even at times without great offensive line from a talent standpoint and a personnel standpoint. Don't want to give up on that, but he's not somebody I want to stash when Arthur Smith has a history of playing a ton of backs. B, we saw such a big role for Gainwell in week 1.
Yeah. Gainwell is somebody you could pick up if you're in really, really deep leagues. Yeah. Najee Harris, do you find dropping him, or would you rather wait and see? Like, how do you compare Najee Harris to Kyle Monangai or DJ Giddens?
So a lot of people were super excited about the role for Marion Hampton in week 1. I think a lot of that was just Najee Harris didn't practice at all this offseason. I think his role will continue to grow.
Would you hold him over Monangai, Giddens, Smith, those rookies?
I mean, it kind of just depends, right? Like if I'm desperate, my roster's super injured and I have just a super thin team, I probably would, because I think he's more likely to have like that flexibility. But Giddens to me is the most valuable keep for my rosters because I see like a path, right? Like if Taylor gets hurt, Giddens is a great player. I don't know if I see that necessarily for Najee.
I would drop him for those players because I do think the upside of them getting in is higher than him. And I also think Amarian is like, I mean, anybody can get hurt, but Hampton is like so built for it. I would be more surprised if he seeded work or got hurt than I would if like DeAndre Swift did, for example, or Jonathan Taylor, who's missed a lot of games.
Right.
Or Pacheco, who runs like an insane person and could go down at any given point.
True.
So that's kind of where I'm at with Najee because I don't know if he is giving you flex appeal. Rachaad White is kind of like Najee in my mind. I don't really think he's giving you flex appeal. Like he ran 8 routes. Bucky Irving ran 21 routes. Rachaad White ran 8. So I just don't know
if he's
what
fully
the
healthy.
is.
But yeah, you're right. This offense just changed so much from the days when Rachaad White was fantasy relevant in it schematically that I think you're right. I would drop him.
Algiers the one here who I would not want to drop for these rookies.
Yeah, handcuff.
And then Ray Davis, it's kind of tough. Like
I would drop Davis.
I don't think I would drop him for like Monangai, Giddens, or Smith. I think I would just hold him and see what happens. But if you want to drop him for Marquise Brown, hell yeah. If you want to drop him for even like Tillman, if you want to drop him for Jayden Higgins or something like that, I'm fine with that because that could turn into something soon, and it could be something big down the stretch. Even if you want to drop for Luther Burden, like I think that I would be fine with that. Even maybe Tesla, unless you like really need a running back lottery ticket, I would kind of be fine with that. How about some receivers who might get dropped? Anybody stand out to you that you would drop, wouldn't drop, or would be looking to pick up if they got dropped? Rashad Bateman had a quiet week. Christian Kirk, maybe people don't want to wait around on if they don't have an IR spot. Adam Thielen, Marvin Mims.
I would be most willing to drop everybody on that list, not named Christian Kirk. I still have high expectations for Kirk once he gets back into the lineup. The rest of those players, I could live without.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's about where I figured you would be at. I'm totally fine dropping Marvin Mims. It's what we have always seen from him as a pro is that he's screens or he's deep balls.
Yep.
He's not really a targeter, not really a route winner right now. And the 90% route participation for the preseason dried up. I think it was like 50% or something like that.
And I don't think Thielen's playing the role Addison played last year, mostly because I don't think the Vikings offense is operating the way it did with Sam Darnold.
The one to me that stands out is Bateman. I would not want to drop Bateman.
Yeah, sure.
I view Bateman as similar to Jayden Higgins. And I have way more confidence in the offense. And I also really think he's a good player. I know like it's frustrating to see him open down the field and not know where the ball is every single game. We saw it again in week 1 where it's like, how can you two not be on the same page? It's like year 5 or whatever.
It's crazy, yeah.
But man, he wins the routes. He just shreds. And there are going to be games where he gives you value. Mm-hmm. And then if something were to happen to Zay Flowers or something like that, then all of a sudden it's like, he might be somebody you can start on a week-to-week basis. So I would prioritize him over most of these players. To me, he's kind of like Tillman, similar kind of role, maybe not quite as much upward scalability with targets right now as the roster stands, but it's such a better offense,
Yeah, I think ultimately when it comes to Bateman, I'll always lean on how much I loved his tape at Minnesota. And I still think he's that player. He shows it when you watch him create separation. It's just not exactly a role that we can count on for fantasy. But I like the point you made. He's a nice one of those like stashes for a Flowers injury type thing.
All right, a few other names from the chat that we should hit on, and then we'll get to some listener questions. Hunter Henry, yes. Pick up Hunter Henry. He's great. He's same range as Britton Strange to me. I feel like his role is a little bit better. I have more confidence in Drake Maye than I do in Trevor. The only difference is that like we think there's like this unknown with Strange where maybe he could be really good. You know, he's really athletic. I think Hunter Henry is just pretty freaking good, honestly. Like I watch the Patriots and I'm like, that's their best player. Like that's the other than Travion Henderson, like that's the best offensive player for Drake Maye to get the ball to. So I'm totally fine picking him up if you need help at tight end. Woody Marks, you can drop Woody Marks. Maybe he becomes something.
No,
I didn't. But yeah, it seems like right now it's just like they're just using 4 guys in the backfield. I think he had like a 12% snap rate or something.
Using 4 guys in a backfield that can't generate any push in the run game. That's not
right.
Good.
Demario Douglas. You have any Pop Douglas thoughts? Like, I think he's fine if you want to pick him up. Let me check in on the roll again real quick. He's not somebody I'd really like prioritize.
Yeah, I'm not adding Pop Douglas anywhere.
Yeah. 74% route rate's good enough. He had 7 targets. He had 2 receptions for -2 yards and a touchdown. Brian Robinson, good stash for sure.
Yeah.
I was surprised that they like actually got him some touches.
Seems he had to come off the field at some point.
Yeah. Is Roman Wilson a dynasty drop? That seems like a question for Dan.
Yes.
Even a dynasty? Sad.
Yeah. It's over. Calvin Austin. Scoop up Austin for him.
Yeah. All right. I think we did a pretty good job here covering the waiver wire. There are some players who might be able to help you right now. And it
wasn't a great waiver wire week. Let's call it like it is. Not every week is going to be that way. When we find our Puka, we'll be very, very bullish on him as Jacob was in the past with Puka, but there was no Puka from this week.
Yeah. Let's hit some listener questions. Do we have those ready, Producer Aaron? Heck,
we're going to wrap up with listener questions. The guillotine question to start, Jacob. And he asks, everyone's soulmate asks now, who is everyone's soulmate? Do you have any guesses on that?
Bucky Irving. I don't know.
I love that. What percentage of free agent acquisition budget are you willing to spend on Jamar Chase in a guillotine league?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you play more guillotine than me. I think for me it would be like 55% or something like that.
You won't get him at 55%. So
I know.
The real answer is
it's hard to answer because you don't know how many people you're playing against and stuff like that. What's your answer?
My answer is NA, not available, because it won't be enough. My percentage that I'm willing to spend won't be enough to win this player. And I think this is a big way. Like, the fishes, in my opinion, in guillotines are the ones who spend early on the first week, after the second week. So remember, you still only have to beat out 17 teams this week to make it pass. And you're not looking to score the most points unless your guillotine league pays out top high points. And that's a different scenario. But mostly you're just looking to survive. And if you only have to beat out 17 teams, you don't want to be the team spending all of your budget early on. So I think the fish are the ones spending on a Chase type player now, and you're better off looking for the booties or whoever it may be at the back end of your guillotine waiver wire to just help your flex spot, to just help your wide receiver 3 or your RB2 spot, or upgrade at quarterback if that's a possibility. Like, look for a way to finish 16th, 15th, or 14th.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Okay, Flubs, McNutty, which I don't know who he means with that name, but anytime I see McNutty, do you know what I think of, Jacob?
I do not.
Right. Ugh. Really?
McNulty?
Yeah, dude. What did Bubs call McNulty? He called him McNutty in the wire. And you got there eventually, at least. But what are your thoughts on Rashid Shaheed? We talked a lot about him, but you can give a quick rundown. I know the QB situation, but is the talent enough?
Yeah, I mean, he's a stud. He's in that range with some weird players you don't know what to do with, like Josh Downs, Darnell Mooney, players like that, Matthew Golden after a bad week 1. I don't think he has as much upside to be something really cool like those players because of the offense. But just as a player, he's very similar to them, maybe even like the best one of that group. I think it's like him and Josh Downs are similar to me. I would have him lower than all of the players in that group, but I do think he's somebody who should be on rosters.
Yeah. I'm with you on that one. Thank you, Flubs McNutty. Let's get to one more here. Sam, go Bam Bam. No idea what this is in reference to, Sam, go Bam Bam. But If you could turn off injuries in fantasy like it's Madden, who's your number one overall pick? It's CMC for me. I've made the case as to why. Actually, is it Henry? Is it just Derrick Henry? Like,
just because he's awesome.
He doesn't not if he's on the field, like Derrick Henry's just constantly good.
Yeah. Those are both good answers. Like Nico's who came to mind, but
it's running back for me.
There's so many other problems. Oh, it's only a running back?
No, if there were no injuries, I would just never not pick a running back.
Yeah. I guess maybe T. Higgins. I would love to see what a full season finally looks like. See if he could just go nuts.
Yeah. All right. Thank you to all you who sent in questions. I want to answer a couple more, Jacob. Just stay around for a few minutes just to kind of help the listeners out. So remember, we're answering questions off of iTunes or Spotify reviews. If you want your question answered on Beyond the Box Score, leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and we will read it there. And so this one is from...
I'm changing my answer. It's Devon Achane, and then let's give him 20 touches a game and see what happens.
Okay. I like that one. This is from Harold3. DAI. Dan and Jacob do a great job of teaching. It is straight to business, and they respect each other's analysis. Jacob seems like I had to read this on air after reading it. Jacob seems like the kind of guy you want your sister to date. Dan seems like the guy who's dating your sister. A fun hang, but it ain't gonna work out. I don't even know what this means, but I love it. Thanks for the excellent content, gentlemen. I guess he didn't have a question. Let me read one that does have a question, and it's from my friend. Let's see if this does have a question. Yes, this is from no. I'm struggling here. Hey, I'm walking here. What do you let's see, what do we got here?
Say what's up to your sister for me.
Yeah, say what's up for Jacob. You know what? Most of these are just telling us how much they like the show, which thank you so much. We'll get back to this next episode, next Tuesday. We will get back with more questions for sure. Leave your questions in the comments, in the reviews. Thank you to everybody for tuning in to this year's fantasy, today's Beyond the Box Score. Sorry, it's been a long day. This is the third podcast of the day for me. Had a great day, though. It's always fun talking ball. Please do us a favor right now. If you haven't done it already, hover your hand over that mouse or whatever you're using. Click the like button. We need more likes on this video. What are we doing here? Just there it is. A quick hover. Use and just click. It's just click that like button right now. Then leave a comment too. Tell us how much you hate me. Troll me. Do whatever you need. I don't care. I'll take it. For the comment, I'll take it. And then finally, a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify. Otherwise, we'll be back tomorrow. Jacob will be back tomorrow on Wednesday's show and Thursday as well. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.